Hey everyone, today we're super excited to release something we've been working on for a very long time. I'm Mike Zachariadis, CEO at Reform Digital, and today I'm excited to announce the launch of CookieFlow. CookieFlow is Webflow's first fully native geolocation-based cookie consent tool with automatic banner switching. It is built specifically to support GDPR and CCPA requirements, consent mode V2, and works out of the box with Webflow Analyze, Optimize, and Localization. It also offers one-click setup for free consent storage in Supabase, and much, much more. And best of all, it is 100% free now and forever. In today's web, there are no real boundaries. You cannot assume your website traffic comes from a single country or privacy zone. Any Webflow site can be accessed from anywhere in the world at any time. So that means your consent experience needs to adapt automatically to different privacy requirements and not rely on one-size-fits-all banners. That is exactly the problem CookieFlow was built to solve. So without further ado, let's get started with CookieFlow. Part 1, copy and connect. To get started, head over to the CookieFlow landing page. You'll find the link in the description below. Here you'll see 3 simple copy and paste buttons. You'll probably use the copy to Webflow button the most, but we can start off with Figma if you want to have design customization. So we can click the Figma button, head over to Figma, paste, and we'll get all the CookieFlow components ready to style as needed, starting off with the manager button, the zone 1 banner, the zone 2 banner, zone 3 banner, existing consents banner, and the privacy settings modal. Now, if we jump back into the CookieFlow landing page, we can then go ahead and copy to Webflow. So if we head over to a Webflow project, we can go ahead and paste that, preferably outside of your main tag, and somewhere close to the nav bar should be fine. We will convert this into a component at the end. So once that's added inside our Webflow project, you'll see we now have the manager icon visible, and everything else is hidden by default so it doesn't clutter your screen. If we open up the CookieFlow wrapper, you'll notice that all of the elements have been named in a well-organized and simple manner, so it's easy to understand what each one of these does. Under the hood, though, they're all using client-first naming convention and styles. And if you want to edit anything or style anything, you just need to change the display from none to flex, and that opens up the specific component. These are all fully native Webflow elements, so you can use the style panel as you would for any other design or development work. And also all of the interactions are native Webflow interactions. So for example, each one of these components has a trigger. It has a div with a trigger attached to it. The CookieFlow code clicks on that trigger every time some logic runs. So if you go into interactions, you can see how these animations work. So that's the closing animation, and then that's the opening animation. So you have full modular control over how the banners open and close. Same applies for these custom toggles. So each one of these toggles has a toggle interaction. And then if you go here, you'll see the second interaction toggles that on and off. And you can change things like the color, or if you do something more fancy with your toggles, this is where you can edit that. So once you've finished styling your components, we can go away and hide this again. We can publish our changes to staging. If I open my staging site now and refresh, I'll notice I'll get an error. It's telling me that I need to add a Supabase storage URL and a Supabase public API key to activate CookieFlow. So that's the last step to make this work. So we've designed it in Figma, we've added it to Webflow with a simple copy paste. And the third one is to connect Supabase so we have our consent storage mechanism in place. That is a GDPR requirement. You need to keep a log of all your consents. And since CookieFlow is a geolocation-based consent system, consent storage is a requirement, and hence why we have this alert so it doesn't ever get forgotten. You can create a free account in Supabase. Once you do that, you can head over to your dashboard. You can head into your organization and then create a new project. Once your project is ready, head back to the CookieFlow website, and then you can copy your Supabase SQL code. Head back to Supabase and go to the SQL editor tab. And all you need to do to set this up is paste the code and run. So that's a simple one-click setup for Supabase, and now that's ready. If we go into table editor now, you'll notice that there's a new table called consents with all the row level security, all the columns needed by CookieFlow to store all the metadata for consents. So last part to connecting CookieFlow, you need to head to your project settings, go to Data API, and grab your project URL. Then head back into your Webflow project. And under CookieFlow, you'll find the scripts. And here you need to replace two scripts. One is your storage URL, which is the one we just grabbed. And then if we head back, under API keys, you'll find your public key. It's now called publishable key. And then you can grab it from here and paste it under there. So if I save that and publish again, the alert should disappear now. There we go. The alert has disappeared, and I can see I'm getting served the Zone 3 cookie banner. My location is in a Zone 3 country. That essentially wraps up the setup for CookieFlow. It's as simple as 2 copy-paste actions, and now you're ready to go. So next up, part 2 is adding scripts. So if we head back to our Webflow project, there's 2 ways to add scripts. One is through Webflow as inline scripts, and the other is through Google Tag Manager. So let's look at how we add scripts inside of Webflow. So open up your page, head down to your before body closing tag, and then let's paste some sample console logs. There we go. I have a console log for each type of consent category. I've got an essential script loaded, marketing script loaded, analytics script loaded, and personalization script loaded. So to make these work with CookieFlow, we need to add a type of anything other than JavaScript. So as a best practice, we like to call this disabled as it is semantic. As you see, it also disables the script. And then we add the category with an attribute of rd-CookieFlow. In this case, this is an essential script. So we write it like that. And we can follow the same logic for the rest of the scripts. And that gives us this setup. So we have script type disabled, rd-CookieFlow marketing, analytics, and personalization. So if I go ahead and save that now and publish the staging, I should see the logs triggering based on my consent status. So let's open up our browser console. Already we can see the essential script is loaded by default. Let's move this out of the way. And then if I open up my privacy settings, I can accept marketing, and you can see that has triggered the marketing script. So one cool thing to note now, if you notice, if I open the manager now, it's going to detect that I have already submitted my privacy settings. So it has detected I have a marketing consent submitted as on, when it was submitted, and my consent ID. This is what gets stored in Supabase and gets retrieved. So I can go ahead now and add also analytics. Once I do that, we see the analytics script loaded. And lastly, we can do the same for personalization, accept that, and we see the personalization script loaded. Also, at any point, if any of our consents are withdrawn, That forces a reload. It deletes all the cookies and then reinitializes CookieFlow. So as you see, now we're back to only having essential cookies loaded, while our privacy settings are still stored. Next up, let's see how to add scripts in Google Tag Manager. So let's open up Google Tag Manager and let's create a new container. Let's call this demo 1 for web. And let's grab the Google Tag Manager code and add it to our Webflow site. One thing you need to keep in mind is that no script tags are not compliant because we don't have a way of stopping their execution. They execute without, even if JavaScript is disabled. So we want to avoid adding any no script tags. So let's grab the normal script tag, Google Tag Manager, and head back into our Webflow project. We can go ahead and add that inside of our head code. Then, similar to the approach with the approach we follow with our inline scripts, we can add a type of disabled and let CookieFlow handle the loading of the script. Let's save, give that another publish. And then let's head back into Google Tag Manager, paste our staging, and test that our setup is correct. There we go. It has detected it correctly, so it means that CookieFlow is running that essential slip and Google Tag Manager is finding it. So that's all set up there. And then we have 2 more steps. We need to add the triggers for the different consent types, and then we just need to add in our scripts. So the triggers, we add them once, and then they are available to use them throughout. So one point of advice here, if you head over to our docs, you can find that on the landing page here at the top. That will bring you over here. If we go down to adding project scripts, you'll see we have the manual version here, the inline version, and then if you scroll down, we have the Google Tag Manager instructions here. So this helps with the setup of the triggers. It's quite straightforward. So if we just grab that and head back into Google Tag Manager, we can create a new trigger. We can use that as the name. And then under type, we want a custom event. And then we can call the event essential activated, like so. We need to fire that on some custom events when the event equals the same as the event name, essential activated. Save, and that way this becomes a trigger that can be used in any tag. So we then need to repeat the process for all 4 categories, all 3 remaining categories. So again, we would take analytics cookies, paste that in, trigger on custom event, some custom events when the event equals analytics activated, and so on and so forth. There we go, I've added in the rest. So now we have our triggers all set up and ready to use. So we can start adding tags now. So let's go and add our first tag to simulate an essential script. So we can call this example essential script. And then under tag configuration, we can call this, we can use custom HTML and then paste in a console log that just says essential script loaded, similar to what we did in Webflow, just so we can differentiate between what's loaded from Google Tag Manager and what's loaded from Webflow. So the important part here is then under triggering, we need to find our custom events. So this one being an essential one, we need to trigger it when the essential cookie custom event is fired from our CookieFlow library. So let's save that. And that's how you set up any any script in Google Tag Manager. So we can continue with the same logic. We can do example marketing script. Again, we'll do a custom HTML, add a small console log so we can see that it's firing. And then here we choose marketing script loaded. So I'll repeat that for the other two just to speed up the process. There we go. All 4 example scripts have been added. So now we can go ahead and preview this. Let's get our staging link, add that here, and let's test that. Great, that's loaded. And then if we look over here, we can see by default, let's just move the tag assistant out of the way. It's loading both our inline Webflow scripts and our Google Tag scripts. And then similar to what we did before, if we load our marketing scripts, they get loaded from both of them. We've got consent storage working with both. Analytics loads both of them. And lastly, personalization loads both from Webflow and from Google Tag Manager. And of course, withdrawing any of your consents clears them back to the defaults. Great, so now that we have both inline scripts and Google Tag Manager scripts working, it's time to head back to our project and convert CookieFlow into a component. That way, you can now reuse the component on all the pages of your website and have a central place for any edits if needed. So part 3 is storage and geolocation. If we head back to Supabase, back to our table editor, you'll see that all of the actions we've done since installing CookieFlow have been recorded over here. So we have a consent ID, which remains between sessions. We have anonymized IP with the last octet or last quartet zeroed. We have action date, page URL, the user agent it came from, what was the consent method, what was the text inside of the modal, what was the button that was clicked, a JSON with the consents, and the geographical region. If at any point in the future you need to query your database for consent records, we have some helpful queries for that. So if you head back to our documentation and then go to store consents, if you scroll all the way down, you'll find a section called accessing consent records, and then for administrators. Here we have 4 useful queries. So let's add them in. So if we head back over here and go to our SQL editor, we can get rid of the initial query since we've already created the table. And we can create a new query now with what we copied in. Let's change the date so we have something more recent. Let's hit a run, and that's going to grab all the records from a specific date range. Similarly, we can get consents by region. Let's add that as a separate query and run that. That's going to grab everything from zone 3. Let's check zone 2. There was one from zone 2 as well. And then if we head back here, we have get a specific user's consent history. So that's going to grab all of the consents from a single user. Let's grab an example here and head back to our SQL editor. We can paste the ID that the user would provide to verify their consent. And then if we run that, we can get a record of all their IDs, all their consents. And then the last one is to get the latest consent record. Again, we can use the same ID. So this one's probably the most useful one to kind of see what is the current consent status for this user. Next up, we've got geolocation. So if we head back to our staging domain and clear the cookies, refresh, it has correctly detected that I'm in zone 3. That also gets cached for a few hours. So let's manually delete it to refresh the cache. And then I'm going to change my location using a VPN. So I'm going to change that now to United States. So that would be zone 2. So that's connected now. If I refresh, it has correctly identified zone 2 as my new region. And it's also serving me the correct zone 2 banner. So let's clear that one as well. And then do the same for a zone 3. So I'm going to connect to a zone 3 country. That's just connecting now. I'm connected. So if I refresh the page now, it has correctly detected that I'm in a zone 1 and has gone ahead and loaded all the scripts. Since it's in zone 1, all cookies are accepted. A few things to note here. If you start from a lower zone and go to a higher zone, the higher zone will always be respected. Similarly, if you accept any cookies at a higher zone, so let's just delete this again and go back to zone, to the strictest zone. So if we reject all in the strictest zone and then I change into a lower zone, it will respect my privacy settings unless I override them. So let's go back to United States, for example. So I'm connected, then we refresh. So I took a plane to the States now, and you'll see it's not loading my scripts by default. It has respected my previous privacy settings. If I do open the banner and save the preferences though, that will get overridden with my new consents. And similarly, anything I do in zone 2 or zone 3, so let's say I add do not share or sell my personal information, that disables all scripts again. Anything I do in a higher zone will be respected in a lower one. So similarly, let's go to a zone 1 country, connected, and then refresh the page. You'll see even though zone 1 is accepted by default, since it's detected previous consents, it is respecting them until I override them. So if I close this, nothing happens, but if I do accept the new banner, again, it will treat it as if it's a new consent status. Regarding the zones, if you head back to our docs and go to script configuration, under advanced configuration, you'll see that we have a regional compliance overview. At the time of this recording, these were the countries set as the defaults for zone 1. These were the countries for zone 2. And then these are the countries for zone 3. CookieFlow comes with a handy attribute that lets you override your countries. So you can add RD zone 1 and add your 2-letter country code to manually override any of the defaults. And you would simply go back to your Webflow project, find CookieFlow, open up your scripts, and then add it over here. So an example would be RD zone 1 equals US. So that's how I would override US and move it from zone 2 back to zone 1 if needed. If anything changes in terms of regulations or your specific country has different requirements, you can come and override the settings here. And then some other advanced settings. CookieFlow also works with do not track and global privacy control. So if we activate that in our browser settings, let's head back to our staging domain. Let's clear our cache and close our VPN. And while that's refreshing, we can head to our browser settings, privacy and security. Under third-party cookies, you can activate a do not track request. If we confirm that and head back to our staging and refresh the page now, we'll notice that nothing is tracked by default. And also the do not track has removed our banners completely from the page since we've made an explicit choice there. Another advanced configuration is if you don't want to use the manager button, you can also use a static button like we have here. In order to do that, all you need to do is add an attribute in your project to a button. So let's look at this button. We've added rd-CookieFlow equals manager link, and that creates the same functionality as the normal floating manager button, but without any interactions. You can also reuse this in different places. We'll see in a sec how to use it as a preloader for any videos that load tracking. So let's take this here as an example. We could, in another use case, replace this with a video and then use some JavaScript to dynamically inject the source of the video only when CookieFlow provides the relevant consent. So let's demonstrate how to do that here. So we can pretend that this image is the video, and we can head back to our project settings, to our page settings, and then in our scripts, we can add a little bit of JavaScript that would simulate some a video JavaScript. All this is doing is showing and hiding the image. But here you could have a YouTube or Vimeo embed that dynamically adds the source when the script is run. So let's save that. We've got that under analytics, and then over here we can add some privacy notice for this kind of contact, that the video is blocked and that the user has to accept some privacy settings. So let's go ahead and publish that and see what that looks like. So over here, we've got the privacy setting buttons, which is similar to the one we've used in the footer. So again, we've added that rd-CookieFlow manager link attribute. And now if we head back to our staging domain and refresh, you'll see that by default, everything is blocked. So the script doesn't run. And then if we go to privacy settings and accept analytics, then it does load whatever script you have here, whether it's a video or any other custom script. So that's how to use inline scripts to run any type of code and have it triggered by a consent. And now lastly, let's have a quick look at another demo. Just looking at CookieFlow implementation with Webflow, analyze, optimize, and localization. So we've already added CookieFlow to this project. If we open up the preferences banner, for example, you'll see it's already styled to match the design of this website. Now, if we go over here and we change the locale to Spanish, since CookieFlow is a native Webflow element, we can apply localization to every text as we would with any other element on the page. So that's great. That comes out of the box with localization. And then for analyze and optimize, CookieFlow automatically sends the required signals to let Webflow know whether or not to track. From your side as a developer, you need to go to Insights and make sure that tracking is disabled by default. Always track visitors is on by default, I believe, so you need to change that to don't track by default, and then it tells you need a CMP to manage the consents. So CookieFlow is the platform that handles that for you. So make sure you have don't track by default. And then if we go and look at this example and head over to the staging site for this website, let's open up our console log. We'll see by default, none of the essential or Google tag scripts are loaded. Let's also open up our local storage over here. We'll see that Webflow uses IntelliMize behind the scenes for their analyze and optimize functionality. They've purchased that company, and now it's part of the Webflow product. So you'll see here by default, IntelliMy's tracking is disabled, opt-out is true, everything is disabled by default. And then if we look at how our cookie banner interacts, it allows IntelliMy's the tracking choice, and then only then does IntelliMy's run all the different tracking cookies and local storage items. So no extra setup needed there. It works out of the box. All you need to do is make sure that in your insights settings, tracking is disabled by default. Last up on the list is a small disclaimer. We have it also on our landing page. CookieFlow is meant to facilitate GDPR and CCPA compliance. It is in no way any legal advice, so please consult with your own lawyer and legal team before deciding whether CookieFlow is the right product for your use case and for your regulations. Everything is documented as detailed as possible in the product documentation, so you can check how to integrate correctly and what mechanisms are in place towards privacy. And lastly, if you do have any questions or pick up anything that needs tweaking, feel free to reach out to us. We have a Slack community that we've just created for product support, so feel free to join us there. So wishing you all a Merry Christmas and see you in the next one. Bye.